Hi everyone, welcome back to Cogent English. Here is another episode of our HSA English series. So today I'm going to describe or explain the poetry William Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. So here you will get the complete biography of William Wordsworth and the complete explanation, stanza-wise explanation of the poetry Tintern Abbey. So let's get started.
William Wordsworth was born on April 7, 1770, in Cockermouth, Cumberland, England. He attended Hawkshead Grammar School, where his love of poetry was firmly established. He studied at John's College in Cambridge, and before his final semester, he set out on a walking tour of Europe, an experience that influenced both his poetry and his political sensibilities. He married a childhood friend, Mary Hutchinson, in 1802. In 1795, Wordsworth received an inheritance that allowed him to live with his younger sister, Dorothy. He died on April 23, 1850 at Westmoreland in England. He was buried in St. Oswald's Church. Career. William Wordsworth was a major English Romantic poet who, with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, helped to launch the Romantic age in English literature with the joint publication Lyrical Ballads, 1798. He was the head of Romantic poets. He was called as a nature poet, pantheist and aesthetic poet. Wordsworth, Coleridge and Southey are called as lake poets. Wordsworth succeeded Robert Southey as England's poet laureate in 1843. He was Britain's poet laureate from 1843 to 1850. He was an ardent supporter of the conservative Tories. While touring Europe, he was influenced by French Revolution. This experience brought about Wordsworth's interest and sympathy for the life, troubles, and speech of the common man. In 1813, he received an appointment as distributor of stamps for Westmoreland. Works. Poetry. An Evening Walk, 1793. Descriptive Sketches, 1793. Borders, 1795. Simon Lee, We Are Seven. Lines written in early spring. Expostulation and reply. The tables turned. The Thorn. Lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. Lyrical Ballads, with a few other poems, 1798. It opened with Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and ended with Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. It consists of 23 poems. 19 poems were contributed by Wordsworth and 4 poems by Coleridge. These poems were composed at Alfoxden, Quantock Hills. Lyrical Ballads, with other poems, 1800. Preface to the Lyrical Ballads. Strange fits of passion have I known. She dwelt among the untrodden ways. 3 years she grew. I travelled among unknown men. Lucy Gray, The 2 April Mornings. Solitary Reaper, The Ruined Cottage. Michael. Poems, in 2 volumes, 1807. Resolution and Independence. I wandered lonely as a cloud, also known as Daffodils. My heart leaps up. Ode, Intimations of Immortality. Ode to Duty. The Solitary Reaper, composed upon Westminster Bridge, September 3, 1802. London, 1802. The World is Too Much with Us. Guide to the Lakes, 1810. To the Cuckoo. The Excursion, 1814. Peter Bell, 1819. The Prelude or Growth of a Poet's Mind, 1850. It is Wordsworth's magnum opus, which is autobiographical poem. It was posthumously titled as The Prelude, and published by Mary, before which it was generally known as The Poem to Coleridge. Wordsworth coined the term, spots of time, in it. It is a spiritual autobiography based on Wordsworth's travels through Europe and his observations of life. It was dedicated to Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Note. Wordsworth recognized as poet after publishing a sonnet in The European magazine, in 1787. His earliest poetry was published in 1793 in the collections An Evening Walk and Descriptive Sketches. Wordsworth showed his affinity for nature with the famous poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. His poetry also takes inspiration from the beauty of nature, especially his native Lake District. The magnificent landscape deeply affected Wordsworth's imagination and gave him a love of nature. Quotes. In the Preface to Lyrical Ballads, Wordsworth writes of poetry, the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. She gave eyes, she gave me ears, and humble cares and delicate fears. Wordsworth. Wordsworth is the high priest of nature. Wordsworth uttered nothing base. Tennyson. Wordsworth is called as a moral eunuch. Shelley. Mr. Wordsworth ceases to please, clothing in language not simple, but puerile. Byron. Of thoughtless youth, but hearing of stanza 1. Wordsworth visits Tintern Abbey after a period of 5 years. The River Wye is flowing softly from the mountain. He again sees the steep and high cliffs. The place is fully secluded from the outer world, thus the silent landscape is linked with silent sky. The poet has come here to take rest. He sits under the sycamore tree and looks at the plots of cottage ground. At the season, the fruits are ripe and green in color at the orchard. They are not seen clearly among the groves and trees. He again sees the hedgerows. Everywhere the pastoral farms are green in color. He sees the wreaths of smoke rising up from cottage chimneys between the trees, and imagines that they might rise from vagrant dwellers in the houseless woods, or from the cave of a hermit in the deep forest. These images evoke not only a pure nature as one might expect, they evoke a life of the common people in harmony with the nature. Stanza 2. The speaker then describes how his memory of these beauteous forms has worked upon him in his absence from them. Though he has come here after 5 years, he doesn't behave like a blind man. When he was alone, or in crowded towns and cities, they provided him with sweet sensations in his blood and heart. He got feelings of happiness in his mid. This physical sensation has got a significant influence in a man's life. This leads him to get feelings of kindness and love. The memory of the woods and cottages offered tranquil restoration to his mind. He further credits the memory of the scene with offering him access to that mental and spiritual state in which the burden of the world is lightened. Sometimes he feels that his blood circulation has stopped. He is laid asleep in body and he becomes a living soul. Almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. He is able to get deep power of joy. He would see into life of things. Stanza 3. Sometimes the poet had to spend so many joyless days and nights. The fret and fever of the world would shake him like anything. During that hour, he called the memory of the River Wye which wanders through the woods. He has got much happiness because of his recollections of the natural scenes of the River Wye. Stanza 4. The poet came to these hills 5 years before. He has got many changes in his self in these 5 years. Now he not only gets present happiness but also inspiration for future years. 1. First stage. 5 years before, he treated nature as something as pleasure for the physical senses. He jumped over the mountains like a roe. He ran to the side of the deep rivers. He looked at the lonely streams. He moved from place to place more like a man who was afraid of things than one who loved them deeply. His boyhood coarse pleasures and glad animal movements have gone now. The coarser pleasures of my boyish days, and the glad animal movements all gone by. Now he is not able to express what kind of person he was in the boyhood stage. 2. Second stage. The sound of the waterfalls haunted him like a passion. The tall rock, mountains, gloomy woods and their colors seemed to him an appetite. They gave him feeling of love. Since nature gave him charm and interest, he had no need for the intellectual thoughts. The aching joys and dizzy raptures are not present now, and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures. 3. Third stage. Though he has got lost some of his qualities, he has got other gifts now. It is a sort of compensation for the loss. Now he is not a thoughtless youth. His attitude to nature has completely changed. Now he hears the silent sad music of the humanity and he gets high thoughts. A thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still, sad music of humanity. He senses some universal connection between nature and humanity. He felt a divine presence which gives him elevated thoughts. He feels a sense of sublime and the working of a supreme power in the light of the setting sun, in round oceans, in the blue sky, in the air itself, and even in the mind of man. He is of opinion that emotion and a spirit impel all thinking things. He has become a thoughtful lover of the meadows, the woods and the mountains. Nature is a nurse, a guide and the guardian of his heart and soul. Stanza 5. Suppose the poet did not know the divine presence in nature, he would have made his gentle spirit to decay. Now, his dearest friend, his sister Dorothy, is sitting with him on the bank of the River Wye. In her voice, the poet catches the languages of his former heart. He gets the kind of happiness which he had possessed in his youth. Her wild eyes remind him of his former pleasures. He tells her sister that nature never betrays anyone who loved her. Nature can take us from joy to joy. Nature can impress us with her quietness and beauty. Nature can feed with high thoughts. When nature is within us, we will not get evil thoughts, rash judgments, selfish attitude, unkindness and the rough attitude of our daily life. We will be blessed in all respects. The poet tells his sister to walk along in the moonshine. She can go to the mountain area to breath misty winds. This happiness will become mature thoughts in future. Her mind will become a palace for all the beautiful forms. In her memory, she will have sweet sounds and harmonies. The poet says to her that in later years, when she is sad or fearful, the memory of this experience will help to heal her. If he himself is dead, she can remember the love with which he worshipped nature. He asks her not to forget having stood together on the banks of the river Wye. He says that she won't forget his wanderings, steep woods, lofty cliffs, green pastoral landscape which became dearer to him. The poet has expressed his honest and natural feelings to nature's superiority.